News Talk on Samar News, your go-to podcast for the latest headlines and in-depth discussions. Join us as we unravel the stories that matter most, bringing you insightful commentary and expert analysis. Tune in for a thought-provoking conversations that spark dialogue and inspire action. Stay connected with the news that shapes our world, only on News Talk on Samar News.
Imagine this: a former head of state, someone who commanded huge power, now detained in The Hague. He's facing these incredibly serious charges, crimes against humanity.
Yeah, the whole world's watching, really.
Exactly, waiting for this key hearing, the one that could change everything for him and for international justice itself. And then, boom, just when you think things are moving forward.
A curveball.
A total curveball. A sudden twist that throws the whole thing into doubt. It's quite the situation. Okay, so let's unpack this fascinating turn of events for you. It's all about former Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte and his ongoing situation with the International Criminal Court, the ICC.
Right.
We're going to explore a very recent and honestly pretty significant development. It sent ripples through, international legal circles. It tells us a lot about how global justice works or sometimes doesn't work smoothly. Our mission today: to understand exactly why this crucial hearing got postponed, we need to dig into the legal arguments, the back and forth, and figure out what this specific move tells us about justice at this level, its strengths, and, well, its challenges.
And what's truly fascinating here, and quite serious, of course, is the nature of the accusations themselves. We're talking alleged crimes against humanity.
Yeah, not minor stuff.
Definitely not. Specifically, these charges come from two main periods. First, the killings linked to the so-called Davao Death Squad, back when Duterte was mayor of Davao City.
Right, that history.
And then later, the really widespread killings during his war on drugs when he was president. It's important for you to know, Mr. Duterte has actually been in custody in The Hague since March 12th, 2025.
He surrendered.
He surrendered voluntarily, after an arrest warrant was issued just a few days before that on March 7th. His first appearance before the chamber was quick, March 14th.
Okay.
And everything seemed to be leading up to one specific date, this hearing on the confirmation of charges. That was originally set for September 23rd, 2025.
A key date on the calendar.
A very key date. Meticulously planned, you could say. But, well, now it's officially off the calendar, at least for now.
And this is exactly where it gets really interesting, because just when we had that timeline, let's say, surprising move from the defense totally threw a wrench into the works, didn't it?
It certainly did. On August 18th, 2025, Duterte's lawyer, Nicholas Kaufman, he filed something called an adjournment request.
Okay, an adjournment request. Sounds standard, maybe?
Well, not quite. This one had a very specific, very impactful claim inside it, that Mr. Duterte is, and this is the quote, not fit to stand trial.
Wow, not fit to stand trial. That's huge.
It is. And based on that claim, they asked for all legal proceedings, including that big confirmation hearing we were just talking about, to be paused indefinitely.
Indefinitely, not just a short delay.
That was the request, yes. An indefinite pause. It's a bold claim, and like you said, it adds complexity. It's also worth noting this isn't the first sort of strategic move from his defense team. Yes. Earlier on, they submitted some undisclosed information. The argument then was apparently that Duterte, because of his condition, whatever that might be, wouldn't be capable of fleeing or hiding.
Trying to get him temporary release. Exactly.
They argued it should entitle him to temporary freedom. So you see a pattern maybe emerging. It really adds another layer to this high-stakes legal chess match that's playing out.
Absolutely. So the defense makes this big claim, not fit to stand trial. How did the ICC respond?
Well, that request definitely forced the court's hand. They had to make a significant decision. And on September 8th, 2025, the pretrial chamber I of the ICC voted. Interestingly, it was a 2-1 vote.
Split decision.
Well, a split decision, yes. They voted to postpone the hearing until further notice. The chamber called it a limited postponement.
Limited. What does that mean exactly?
Good question. They specified it was specifically to allow, quote, sufficient time to adjudicate, basically, to rule on that adjournment request about Duterte's fitness.
Okay, so it's a pause to decide on the fitness issue, not necessarily accepting the fitness claim itself yet.
Precisely. And it's really crucial for you, the listener, to understand what this decision actually means, and maybe just as importantly, what it doesn't mean. Yes, it definitely took that September 23rd date off the books, But it did not, at least not yet, adjourn or stop the entire case. And no new date was set either. It essentially just suspended certain administrative time limits, things related to how the proceedings are conducted. Think of it as hitting a specific pause button on the formal timeline.
Got it. So the case isn't dead, just paused at this specific juncture.
Exactly. And what's particularly notable here is how ready everyone else seemed to be. The other parties were fully prepared to go ahead. The prosecution, for instance, they'd already finished disclosing all their evidence way back on July 1st.
They were ready.
Totally ready. They submitted the main document containing the charges on July 4th and their detailed pre-confirmation brief by July 24th. Both the prosecution and the victims' teams said they were ready to resume immediately if needed.
So the prosecution and victims were lined up, ready to go for September 23rd. But this defense motion stopped things for now.
That's the situation, yes.
Okay, so even before the ICC actually made that 2-1 decision to postpone, you mentioned there was pushback against this whole idea of an indefinite pause. Who was arguing against it?
Yeah, the opposition came pretty quickly and clearly. On August 28th, so just 10 days after the defense request, the prosecution formally stated they opposed an indefinite adjournment.
Okay, the prosecution was against it.
And then just one day later, August 29th, the Office of Public Counsel for Victims, the OPCV, they represent the victims' interests. They also registered strong opposition.
So both key parties pushed back.
Right. Now, the prosecution did indicate it might accept a short adjournment, but only if it was strictly necessary for the chamber to quickly decide on the fitness request itself.
So a quick pause to decide, maybe okay, but not this open-ended thing the defense wanted.
Exactly. It shows a clear preference from both the prosecution and the victims' representatives to keep things moving, efficiently. They didn't want a potentially long delay based on what looked like a last-minute claim from the defense.
That 2-1 split vote you mentioned, that immediately tells me there's some serious disagreement within the court, among the judges themselves.
Absolutely. A split like that points to some deep legal, maybe even philosophical disagreements. And Judge Maria de Socorro Flores Liera, she issued a really powerful dissenting opinion.
The judge who voted against the postponement.
That's right. She argued quite strongly that the postponement was premature. She actually thought the defense's request should have been rejected outright at this stage.
Rejected. Why? What was her reasoning?
Well, her core argument, and this really gets to the heart of the legal debate, is about the clear line the Rome Statute draws between the pretrial chamber and the trial chamber.
Okay, explain that difference for us.
Sure. Think of the pretrial chamber as, like, the gatekeeper. Its job is to see if there's enough evidence to even proceed to a full trial. The trial chamber is where the actual trial happens, witnesses testify, and typically that's where issues like a defendant's fitness to stand trial are properly examined and decided.
Got it. Different stages, different jobs.
Exactly. And for anyone not familiar, the Rome Statute is basically the rule book, the founding treaty for the ICC. Judge Flores Liera really emphasized that the pretrial chamber's role in this specific confirmation hearing is much more limited.
How so?
Its purpose, under Article 61 of 7 of the statute, is solely to determine if there are substantial grounds to believe the person committed the crimes charged. That's the threshold.
Substantial grounds to believe, okay?
And crucially, she pointed out this decision is based on evidence the prosecution presents, which may rely on documentary or summary evidence and need not call the witnesses expected to testify at the trial. It's an initial check, not the full trial itself.
So not the deep dive into fitness yet.
Right. She argued the statute lays out only 3 specific things the pretrial chamber can do after this hearing. 1, confirm the charges and send the case to trial. 2, decline to confirm the charges. Or 3, adjourn the hearing, but only so the prosecution can gather more evidence or change the charges.
And deciding on fitness isn't one of those 3.
Exactly. A determination of fitness just isn't in the pretrial chamber's toolkit at this stage, according to her interpretation of the statute. That would normally happen after charges are confirmed when the case moves to a trial chamber.
So she felt they were jumping the gun on the fitness issue.
Pretty much. She believed the chamber should have just gone ahead with the scheduled hearing on September 23rd. Her focus was on ensuring the expeditiousness of the proceedings, keeping things moving efficiently, and sticking strictly to the court's own rules.
It's a really compelling argument about procedure and roles, isn't it?
It really is. It highlights the importance of maintaining those clear procedural stages within the court system.
That's a strong point about sticking to the rules. But let me play devil's advocate for a second. Does a court like the ICC, which is still relatively young on the world stage, sometimes need a bit of flexibility? especially with these huge high-profile cases? Or is sticking strictly to the procedure always the top priority, even if it causes delays?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's a critical tension for any international court. Judge Lier's dissent basically says, look, procedural clarity and the integrity of the statute have to come first. Otherwise, you risk setting bad precedents.
Meaning?
Well, while being flexible might seem like the practical thing to do in one specific high-profile case like this, if you start blurring those lines between what the pretrial chamber does and what the trial chamber does, you could, down the road, really undermine the whole structure and how fair the ICC's process is perceived to be. Yeah. If pretrial chambers start getting bogged down in deciding fitness issues early on, it could open the door to all kinds of tactical delays from defense teams.
Using it as a strategy.
Potentially, yes. It could overwhelm the court, slow everything down, and make it harder to deliver justice promptly. So the core idea behind her dissent is that the rules exist for good reasons to ensure both efficiency and proper legal process at each specific step.
Makes sense. Now, thinking about the victims in all this, this kind of delay, it's not just a legal technicality for them, is it? It must hit much harder.
Absolutely. From their perspective, it's deeply personal and often frustrating.
Christina Conti, who's a lawyer representing some victims in this case, she had a pretty strong reaction. She called the defense's move a desperate, time-worn, and calculated ploy to paint himself aggrieved. Strong words.
Very strong words, highlighting the potential tactical element.
Yeah. And Conti brought up a really critical point, something practical from the rule book. She mentioned Rule 124 of the ICC Rules of Procedure and Evidence.
Okay, Rule 124, what does it say?
Apparently, under that rule, if Mr. Duterte was genuinely feeling unwell, or maybe not, as she put it, his usual strongman self, he could actually waive his right to be physically present at the confirmation hearing. He could just assign his lawyer to represent him there.
So his physical presence isn't strictly mandatory if there's a valid reason and he waives it.
That seems to be Conti's point, which, does suggest that maybe the defense's argument is more about strategy than actual medical necessity. Of course, we don't know for sure, but it raises the question.
It certainly adds to the narrative.
And it definitely adds to the emotional burden on the victims, who've waited so long already. We know the victims' teams are ready for the hearing, and people are actually being assessed right now to formally participate in the case. They're still pushing forward.
And it's important for you to remember, connecting this back to the bigger picture, that even with this hearing postponed, the investigation itself hasn't stopped. Not at all.
The evidence gathering continues.
Oh, yes. Evidence gathering keeps going, sometimes in pretty interesting ways. For example, there have been reports recently that a retired police colonel, Royina Garma.
Garma, I remember that name.
You probably do. She's a potentially significant figure. She previously testified in a Philippine congressional inquiry that Duterte, back when he was mayor, explicitly asked her to design a reward system for kills during the drug war.
Right, the reward system. Very controversial.
Extremely. And the recent development is that she apparently flew to Malaysia specifically to meet with ICC investigators.
Flew to Malaysia to talk to the ICC. That's significant.
It is, especially considering her journey. She was apparently released from immigration detention in the U.S., returned to Manila, and then went to Malaysia. It really underscores that the evidence-gathering process is active and ongoing.
So even if the courtroom action is paused.
Exactly. The investigative gears are still turning. They're meticulously building the case, regardless of these temporary procedural delays in the hearings themselves. It's a clear signal that the underlying investigation remains robust and is moving forward independently.
Okay, so wrapping this up, what does all this mean for you, the listener, trying to make sense of global justice? We've seen this really complex, very strategic legal move at the ICC. The suspect's fitness to stand trial itself is being questioned. And it just throws into sharp relief this difficult balancing act that international courts always face, doesn't it? Balancing the suspect's fundamental rights, even when they're accused of the worst crimes against the need for efficient justice for victims.
It's a constant tightrope walk.
And what this particular move by Duterte's defense shows us isn't just that balance, but maybe a potential playbook, right? How high-profile defendants might use procedural details to try and delay or even derail things. It forces the ICC to constantly adapt.
Yeah, testing its resilience.
And it also just lays bare how even the top international judges can interpret the same rules differently, leading to these split decisions that can really change the direction of these huge cases.
Which leads us to a pretty fundamental question to leave you with as these proceedings continue to unfold. What does it really mean for international accountability when a court has to weigh a defendant's claim about their physical or mental state against the sheer urgency of delivering justice for alleged crimes against humanity?
That's a heavy question.
It is. How might these kinds of strategic legal claims, assuming they are strategic, or even if they're genuine, impact the pace and maybe even the public perception of global justice moving forward? And how will courts like the ICC need to evolve to handle these complex situations, ensuring both fairness and efficiency? It really pushes us to think about where that line is between legitimate due process and strategic delay, and what's needed to make sure justice is ultimately served swiftly and impartially.
News Talk on Samar News, your go-to podcast for the latest headlines and in-depth discussions. Join us as we unravel the stories that matter most, bringing you insightful commentary and expert analysis. Tune in for thought-provoking conversations that spark dialogue and inspire action. Stay connected with the news that shapes our world, only on News Talk on Samar News.